Marcus Chen gripped the steering wheel of his rental car, weaving through Chicago's afternoon traffic with the kind of desperation only a soon-to-be father could muster. His flight from Seattle had landed late. Of course, it had to be today, of all days. And now Sarah was already at Northwestern Memorial, their first child deciding to arrive 3 weeks ahead of schedule. His phone buzzed again. Sarah's mother this time. "Where are you?" He didn't dare take his eyes off the road to check the full message. The sky had darkened prematurely, heavy clouds threatening rain, and the streets were slick with the first few drops. A taxi cut him off, forcing him to slam the brakes. Come on," he muttered, drumming his fingers against the wheel. He'd missed so much already, the last ultrasound, the final birthing class, the nerve completion, all because of this massive software deal that couldn't wait. The GPS recalculated, suggesting a route through a neighborhood he didn't recognize. Old brownstones loomed on either side, their windows dark despite the early hour. Something about the street made him uneasy. Maybe the way the trees bent over the road, creating a tunnel of shadows, or how the usual city noise seemed muffled here. A figure stepped into the street right in front of his car. Marcus slammed on the brakes again, his heart leaping into his throat. The rental car's tires squealed against wet asphalt, and he found himself staring at an elderly woman who hadn't even flinched at her near miss with his front bumper. She turned to face him, and even through the windshield, her eyes seemed to pin him in place. She raised one hand, palm forward, and beckoned. "No time," Marcus muttered to himself, but something made him roll down his window. Maybe it was guilt over almost hitting her, or the strange stillness that had fallen over the street. The woman approached his car with surprising grace, her dark shawl dotted with raindrops. "You're going to see your wife," she said. Not a question. Her accent was impossible to place, like she'd lived everywhere and nowhere. "The baby comes today." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain. "How did you—" "You need to hear this." She leaned closer, and Marcus caught the scent of something herbal, tea leaves, maybe, or incense. "The child you're rushing to meet, it's not the one you're meant to raise." The words hit him like a physical blow. "What are you talking about?" His phone buzzed again in the cup holder, ignored. "Your real child was born 6 months ago in Seattle." The woman's eyes never left his face. "To a woman named Michelle Parker. You met her at a conference last spring. The Emerald City Tech Summit." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. The conference. The night he couldn't quite remember. The networking event that had turned into drinks that had turned into... He'd convinced himself it was just a blackout, that nothing had happened. "That's impossible," he whispered. But he was already pulling up his calendar, scrolling back through the months. The dates aligned perfectly. Marcus stared at his phone screen until the letters blurred. He remembered Michelle, tall, brilliant, with a laugh that carried across the hotel bar. They'd talked about AI ethics until the place closed. He'd woken up in his room alone, his memories fuzzy, assuming nothing had happened. "She never told me," he said, his voice hollow. The fortune teller's expression softened. "She didn't want to disrupt your life. But the child, your daughter, she's sick. She needs her father's medical history. Michelle has been trying to find a way to reach you that wouldn't destroy your marriage." The rain was falling harder now. Another text from Sarah's mother. "She's asking for you. Hurry." Marcus felt like he was drowning. Sarah and he had tried for 2 years to have a baby. 2 years of appointments, disappointments, and finally success. She'd been so happy when the test came back positive, planning everything down to the shade of green for the nursery walls. "If you choose to ignore this," the fortune teller said, "I understand. But that little girl in Seattle, she has your eyes, and a rare blood condition that runs in your family." Marcus's hand went to his neck, where a small scar remained from his own childhood surgery, the hereditary condition that had nearly killed him at age 6. The one he hadn't even told Sarah about because the doctor said it was so unlikely to be passed on. "How do you know all this?" Marcus demanded, his voice shaking. The fortune teller stepped back from his car, raindrops running down her weathered face. "You'll find Michelle's number in your old emails. She sent you a message last week from a new account. It went to your spam folder." She turned away, pulling her shawl tighter. "The choice is yours now." Marcus grabbed his phone again, hands trembling as he opened his email. Spam folder. Search. Michelle Parker. There it was, sent 3 days ago while he was deep in contract negotiations. Subject line, "Important, please read." His thumb hovered over the email. Another text from the hospital flashed across the top of his screen. The email loaded. Medical terms jumped out at him, hereditary spherocytosis, the same condition he'd had. Treatment needed, contact urgent. A photo attachment showed a tiny girl in a hospital crib, dark eyes looking straight at the camera. His eyes. Marcus felt the world tilting sideways. 2 children, 2 responsibilities, 2 lives that would never be the same after today. Sarah would be devastated, not just by his infidelity, but by the timing. Finding out on the day she was giving birth to what she thought was their first child, he looked up, but the fortune teller had vanished into the rain. The street was empty now, the brownstones watching silently as he sat paralyzed behind the wheel. His phone rang. Sarah's number this time. Marcus stared at her smiling contact photo, taken on their last vacation before the pregnancy. She was laughing at something he'd said, her head thrown back, sunlight in her hair. "Hey," he answered, his voice rough. "Marcus." Sarah's voice was strained but determined. "Where are you? The contractions are getting closer." He swallowed hard. "I got caught in traffic, but I'm coming. I promise I'm coming." There was a pause, filled only with her measured breathing. "I need you here," she said simply. "Whatever's happening out there, whatever's wrong, and I can hear in your voice that something is, I need you here with me first." She was right. Whatever chaos was about to explode into their lives, Sarah deserved to have this moment untainted. Their child, because this was their child, regardless of biology or timing, deserved to enter the world surrounded by joy, not crisis. Marcus put the car in drive. The hospital was 8 minutes away. He had 8 minutes to push down the panic, to lock away the revelation that threatened to tear his world apart. 8 minutes to become the husband and father his family needed right now. The fortune teller's words echoed in his mind. The choice is yours now. But that wasn't quite true. The choice had been made months ago, in a Seattle hotel room he barely remembered. The hospital loomed ahead, its windows glowing against the darkening sky. Marcus pulled into the parking structure, his movements automatic. As he stepped out of the car, reality hit him in waves. He was about to meet his child. Both of his children existed in the world now. Every step forward would change lives forever. Sarah's mother met him at the maternity ward entrance, her usual composure cracking. "Thank goodness you're here. She's in room 312. She grabbed his arm as he started to move past. "Marcus, are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." He managed a shaky smile. Just anxious to see her. Not a lie, but not the whole truth either. The hallway stretched ahead, each step bringing him closer to a moment he couldn't take back. Sarah's face lit up when he walked in, despite the pain evident in her expression. She reached for his hand, and he took it, feeling the strength of her grip as another contraction built. "You made it," she breathed between focused breaths. "I was worried. Wild horses couldn't keep me away," he said, the familiar phrase tasting like ashes in his mouth. He brushed her damp hair back from her forehead, studying the face he'd loved for 6 years. The face he'd betrayed without even remembering it. The doctor came in, all efficiency and encouragement. "Almost time to push, Sarah. Dad, are you ready to meet your baby?" Everything blurred into a symphony of controlled chaos. Sarah's determined breathing, the medical team's steady instructions, the beeping of monitors. Marcus held her hand, whispered encouragement, played his part while his mind raced between 2 hospitals and 2 cities. "One more big push," the doctor urged. Sarah bore down, her face flushed with effort. The room seemed to hold its breath, and then a cry. Strong, indignant, alive. Their child announcing its arrival to the world. "It's a boy," the doctor proclaimed. Marcus felt tears on his face as the tiny, red-faced infant was placed on Sarah's chest. She was crying too, reaching out to touch their son's cheek with trembling fingers. "He's perfect," Sarah whispered. And he was. All pink skin and dark hair and impossibly small fingers. Marcus counted toes, memorized the shape of his son's nose, watched in wonder as tiny eyelids fluttered. A nurse asked if they had a name ready. They did. They'd chosen it months ago. "Benjamin," Sarah said proudly. "Benjamin James Chen." Marcus touched his son's hand, felt the instinctive grip of tiny fingers around his own. The love that flooded through him was overwhelming, unexpected in its intensity. This was his son. Whatever else was true, whatever chaos waited in his inbox, this moment was real. Later, when Sarah was sleeping and Benjamin was in the nursery, Marcus sat in the waiting room with his phone. His hand shook as he opened Michelle's email again. "Dear Marcus," it began. "I've struggled with whether to send this. I know you're married, and I know your wife is expecting. I wouldn't reach out if it wasn't urgent. Our daughter Emma needs medical treatment. He read every word twice, studying the attached photo. The resemblance was undeniable. Emma had his mother's chin, the same genetic marker that had skipped him but apparently found its way to her. A nurse appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Chen, your son's awake. Would you like to hold him?" Marcus followed her to the nursery, where Benjamin lay squirming in his bassinet. As he lifted his son, a certainty settled over him. He couldn't undo the past, but he could choose how to move forward. He had 2 children now, 2 responsibilities. The fortune teller had been wrong about one thing. It wasn't about choosing between them. It was about finding the courage to be there for both, whatever that meant. Benjamin yawned in his arms, tiny fingers flexing. Marcus sat in the rocking chair, holding his son close as he typed a response to Michelle with one hand. "I just received your email. I'm so sorry I didn't know sooner. I'm at the hospital now. My son was just born. But Emma needs help, and I want to do the right thing. Can we talk tomorrow? I'll give you my full medical history and whatever else she needs. I want to help." He hit send before he could second-guess himself. The weight of secret still pressed on his chest, but at least this first step was taken. Tomorrow would bring harder conversations, painful truths. Sarah stirred when he returned to her room. "Is he okay?" she asked sleepily. "Perfect," Marcus assured her, settling into the chair beside her bed. "He's absolutely perfect." She studied his face in the dim light. "Something happened today, didn't it? Before you got here?" Marcus took her hand, feeling the warmth of her wedding ring against his palm. "Yes," he said quietly. "And tomorrow, when you're stronger, we need to talk. But right now, I just want to be here with you and Benjamin." Sarah's eyes searched his face, concern mixing with exhaustion. "Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together," she said softly. "We always do." Marcus squeezed her hand, wondering if she would still feel that way tomorrow. But looking at her now, seeing the strength and love that had drawn him to her from the beginning, he felt a glimmer of hope. The truth would hurt, God, how it would hurt. But they had built something real together, something worth fighting for. His phone buzzed, a reply from Michelle. He let it wait. Tonight was for this family, this moment. Tomorrow would come soon enough with its storms. Outside the hospital window, the rain had stopped. The fortune teller's words echoed in his memory, but they felt different now. Not a choice between 2 lives, but a challenge to live up to both. To be better than his mistakes. Benjamin made a small sound in his bassinet, and Sarah smiled in her sleep. Marcus watched them both, his heart full of love and fear and determination. Whatever came next, he would face it. He owed that much to all of them, to Sarah, to Benjamin, to Emma, and to himself. The night deepened, and somewhere across the country, another tiny hand gripped another hospital rail. 2 worlds about to collide.